Hello friends, my name is Jen and I am super excited and honored to be here today and share with you a little bit about capacity. But before I start, I do want to share a little bit about me. My husband and I, Andy, have been married for just over 12 years and we've been attending Substance for just over 10. We have two awesome boys, Elijah who's 10 and Caleb who's 6. I am a full-time working mom and I have the privilege and honor of fulfilling my health and fitness passion and being a well-being director for the YMCA. I'm also an avid runner. I love to run half marathons, full marathons, and I'm actually currently training for my first 30-mile race. I'm super excited and slightly terrified about this distance. Another important fact about me is I'm a foster parent. My husband and I are extremely passionate about foster care and adoption. The reason I share about these three specific things is they're all going to tie into my talk about capacity. So I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to definitions. And so in preparing for this talk, I was looking up different definitions of capacity. And one of them I found is the ability to do something, a mental, emotional, and physical ability. I also was reading several quotes about capacity. And here's just a couple of my favorite that I found. Bravery is the capacity to perform properly even when scared half to death. The most authentic things about us is our capacity to create, to overcome, to endure, to transform, to love, and to be greater than our suffering. And I just found both of those definitions as really powerful. Thinking about the things in our lives that we do even when we're scared half to death or when we have to endure something that's really hard. This leads me to my first point. In order to grow your capacity, you really have to ask God to increase it. And when you ask God to increase your capacity, you will be pushed way beyond what you think you can handle. This is very true in my life. One of my most consistent prayers over this last year has been, God, please increase my capacity. And He has answered that prayer in different ways, with challenges, new opportunities, and even a little bit of suffering. In 2018, my husband Andy and I decided to start the process of being licensed for foster care. Now, we had been praying about this for about a year and a half before we finally took that first step in the process. Now, the process of being licensed for foster care in and of itself is pretty stretching, but we made it through the process and we're preparing ourselves and our boys to welcome a child into our home. In the beginning of 2019, we joined Substance Church in the 21 days of prayer and fasting. And it would really challenge you to do this if you have not participated in this time. It is an amazing way to start the year. And our 3 areas of focus during that season were job promotion for both Andy and I, and that we would welcome a foster baby into our home soon. God answered all 3 of those prayers just 6 weeks later, all on the same day. Yeah, crazy, right? Well, let me explain a little bit about kind of how that played out. So it was a Tuesday, and I was walking out of an interview for a job with the Y that I had been working towards for about 2 years. As I was walking to my car, I got a phone call from a social worker saying they needed placement for a baby girl that day. I could not believe it. Of course I said yes. I hung up the phone, got in the car, and started driving to Andy's work. When I walked into his work, he had a smile on his face, like beaming ear to ear, and I thought, does he know about baby girl? What's going on? He proceeded to tell me that he had just been offered the promotion that we had been praying for. I was so excited. I just had to tell him right away about baby girl. I could barely even process the fact that he had just gotten the job that he had been praying for. I told him about baby girl. We both just looked at each other in disbelief. As we were frantically trying to get ready for baby to be dropped off in a couple hours, I got a call offering me the job that I had just interviewed for that morning. Talk about God's faithfulness. The way He provided all 3 of those things in the same day was truly mind-blowing. Like I said, we literally got all 3 things that we had been praying for months, all in the same day. A new baby, 2 new jobs, and trying to figure out how to handle it all. Talk about capacity expanding by force because we had no other choice. But it's exactly what we prayed for, and it's exactly what we had prepared for. Not only do you have to ask, but you have to be willing to step into the opportunities that God provides for you to stretch you. It won't be easy, but I promise you it will be worth it. You cannot grow your capacity by sitting on the sidelines. You can't ask for God for something, but then not being willing to step into it. I was extremely stretched over the next 6 to 12 months of that year, and my capacity grew in ways I never thought possible. I love what Hebrews 12, 1 through 2 says, and I'm going to read it to you. It says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with endurance the race marked out for us. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God." This leads me into my second point. Growing your capacity requires endurance. Endurance is the power of enduring something unpleasant or difficult without giving up. Endurance is also your physical ability to continue over the long haul. As I mentioned earlier, I'm a runner, and I especially enjoy running long distances. In my marathon training, I'm pushing my body past its physical capacity. But when you're training for a race like that, it's more than just physical capacity, it's a mental capacity as well. You have to be able to tell yourself to continue to put one foot in front of the other when your body is screaming for you to stop. Mile 20 of a marathon is affectionately called the wall. And the reason it's called the wall is because you literally hit a wall physically. Your glycogen storage in your muscles are depleted and you are completely exhausted. This is really where you have to tap into that mental capacity to get you to the finish line. This is typically the point for me personally where I tell myself, Jen, you are never doing this again. This is way too painful. Why do you keep doing this? So usually about mile 23, I am telling myself I'm never doing it again. But as soon as I cross that finish line, I'm ready to sign up for the next race. So why do I continue to put my body through that and do months and months of training? It's for the prize of the accomplishment I feel when I cross the finish line. I'm fixing my eyes on what's ahead, not what's behind me or even that pain that I'm currently experiencing. This is what we have to do in the race of our lives. If we focus on what's right before us, or we get stuck or caught up in the pain of the past, we will never be able to move forward. If we lean on our own strength, our own understanding, and our own limited capacity, we will remain stuck. Philippians 3, 12 through 14 says, "Not that I have already obtained all this or have been made perfect, but I press on to take hold of that which Christ Jesus took hold of me. Brothers, I do not consider myself yet to have taken hold of it, but one thing I do, forgetting what's behind and straining towards what's ahead. I press on towards the goal to win the prize for that which Christ has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus." I hope that you guys see a theme here in this capacity building. In order to build that capacity and to run this race with endurance, we can't be stuck behind. We always have to be pressing forward and looking to something beyond where we are right now. This leads me to my third point. We cannot, and I cannot emphasize this enough, we cannot increase our capacity without divine power. In and of itself, we are nothing. If we rely on our own strength and ability, we will fail every time. When we ask God to increase our capacity, we have to ask him to work in us, to give us the strength we need to enter that challenge or that new opportunity that he has right in front of us. We have to daily confess that we are not enough. 2020 was a year like none other. And without knowing your individual stories, I know that each one of you was challenged and stretched in ways you never thought possible. This was one of the many blessings of the COVID-19 experience. My 2020 was far from easy. To be honest, it was probably one of the hardest years of my adult life. As I shared in the beginning, God gave me an incredible job. Also, he gave me an amazing gift of a baby girl, all on the same day. In 2020, I lost both of those gifts, not once, but twice. Our daughter went home to be with her mom after a year in our home. It was heartbreaking, but incredible at the same time. To be able to be a part of a reunification story was so amazing. But the grief that I felt when I said goodbye to her was something I had never experienced in my life. Just a few weeks later, COVID hit, everything shut down, and I was furloughed from my job. Now all of a sudden, I'm going from being a full-time working mom to a stay-at-home mom during a pandemic, trying to navigate distance learning with my kids and stay strong amidst all the unknown. Fast forward a few weeks, and our daughter was placed back in our home. Now I'm at home, schooling my kids and chasing around a toddler. Over the next few months, I grew so much, living in this new world, being stretched. And while so many parts of that season were such, I was so grateful for, and there were so many blessings in it, and this time that I got with my kids I never had as a working mom, there was also part of that season that was so exhausting, and I felt so alone. Another part of it is I was just so worried about the unknown, the future. And so in that season, I felt my capacity really beginning to grow once again. In June, our daughter went home for the second time, this time for good. And this is where she should be, and we felt peace about this. But having to walk through the goodbye and the grief a second time was almost more than I could bear. But God's divine power in me was the only thing that kept me moving forward. I remember the day that we brought her home again. After we dropped her off and we were driving home, through tears in my eyes, I looked at Andy and I said, I want to keep doing this. Through his own tears, he turned to me and said, me too, babe, me too. And you might ask, why would you want to put yourself through that heartache again? Why would you choose to do that again? Because we know that it's all worth it. Loving her was worth it. Seeing a family made whole was worth it. Seeing God bring beauty from ashes, restoration from brokenness was all worth it. And Andy and I were just simply humbled and honored to play a role in that. Our capacity to love and to grieve and to do hard things had grown through that experience and through God's incredible divine power and work in our lives. We did none of it on our own capacity. Fast forward again, in August, after being home for 6 months, I was called back to work, which I was so grateful for. Fast forward again, 2.5 months later, everything shut down. I was back home again. So the back and forth of working and not working, being at home and being a working mom was really challenging. And like I said before, there were so many blessings in that time with my kids. I would never, ever take that time back. But I did find that I found so much of my identity in what I did for a career. And it wasn't until it was stripped away that God was really able to work in me in finding my true identity in Him. And I think that's true for all of us. When those things that we find peace and security and identity in are taken from us, that's when God can really begin to strip away those things that we've built up that are not of Him. God is so faithful, you guys, and He provided through all the ups and downs and brokenness of this last year. My capacity to do hard things and push past my breaking point is larger than it's ever been. I could not have gotten to where I am without God's divine power in my life and without opening myself up to the difficult. If I hadn't allowed myself to do those difficult things, my capacity would have never grown. Isaiah 43:18, I'm going to read that to you as well. It says, forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the desert and streams in the wasteland. I just love that promise. And I don't know where you are right now today. Maybe you're walking through a wilderness or you feel like you're stuck in a wasteland. But my encouragement to you is don't stay there. Don't be discouraged. What if there is something incredible right next door, right through the wilderness, right past that wasteland, where you can grow your capacity so God can prepare you for what's next? There is purpose in everything that we walk through, good and hard. God is always working behind the scenes, and that is something that was so evident in my life, especially over these last 2 years. And He just kept reminding me, trust me, Jen, I am doing something and you cannot see it. None of us have arrived, and we constantly have to humble ourselves and ask God to fill us with His Spirit so that we can continue to run this race with endurance. I am so grateful for the year 2020, and I'm sure many of you feel the same way. I am grateful for the pain and the blessings. I am grateful that I am not the same person I was a year ago. I am grateful for my husband, who's my rock, my amazing kids, and my incredible community. I'm grateful that my capacity has been expanded and will continue to grow as I step into the things that God has prepared for me. My prayer today is that something that I said encouraged you, and that you can take these things and believe that you can do way more than you think you can. God has so many incredible things for you, but it's not until you step out in faith, you push yourself past that limit, you go farther than you think you can. That is where the victory is, and that is where your capacity will grow. I'm just going to close in prayer. Awesome Father, thank you for your power and your faithfulness in our lives. Thank you for each one of these women and that they tuned in today. God, I just pray that you would empower them and help them to be hopeful and expectant of the things to come. I pray that you would give us strength and ability to push past our capacity, that we would trust you completely for your strength and your divine power in our lives. Thank you for all your blessings. Thank you for the gift of today. We love you, Jesus. Amen.